We are finishing up this series, Change Your World, and Jesus has something to say about this subject to you today. We're going to be looking at kind of some of his advice and his feedback in this area, in this subject, and I really feel like God's going to inspire us today to do something significant for the kingdom. The concept of this series is God has not asked you to change the world, but to change your world. And there's a difference. To think about changing the world, you can feel overwhelmed with all the problems and all the crime and all the issues and the wars and just everything happening with close to 8 or 9 billion people on planet Earth. How in the world can I make a difference in the world? Well, the good news is God's not asked you to change the world. He's asked you to change your world. You have a world that you live in, a sphere of influence, people that you work with, people that you live next to, people that you see on a regular basis, and God has asked you to take responsibility for the world that you live in. Now, what's been amazing to me about this series is how it's resonated with so many people. Throughout this entire series, I've gotten more phone calls and emails and texts and messages and feedback about how this has just impacted people differently than a typical series. And as I think about why has this resonated so much with people, I think it's because all of us deep within feel like we're created for this. We're hardwired to make a difference. We crave it. We long to know that our life counts, that we want to do something with our life that makes a difference. We want to matter. We want to be significant, to make that difference. Jesus, we looked at the first Change the World speech he gave at the beginning of his ministry in Matthew 5. What I want to look at today is I want to look at what he said leaving. His very last speech to us, the last Change the World message he gave us. Siri is on my iPad and I'm trying to get her off. How do I turn you off? Hold on. There we go. In Matthew 28, he gives this final Change the World speech to us when he says, therefore go and make disciples. Change people's life. Pull them out of darkness into the light. Bring them far from God, close to God. Make a difference in this world. But the question is how? And Jesus would say, I'm glad you asked, because there's a lot of clear instructions he leaves us if there's a longing inside of your heart to leave a mark in this world. Now, if you're visiting today, if you're not a Christ follower, you don't even have a relationship with God, you might be thinking to yourself, how in the world am I supposed to go share what Jesus has done in my life? How am I supposed to go make disciples when I don't even know him myself? I'm glad you're here. I really am glad you're here. This is a great Sunday for you to be here because you're going to hear the heartbeat behind our church. You're going to hear what kind of drives us as believers and understand a little bit more about who we are, what we think, and what it's all about. And what I would ask you to consider today is just ask yourself this one question. As you're sitting here listening to this message, not as a Christ follower, not as a person of faith, consider this one question. If these people are so passionate about something they claim has happened in their life, something they've experienced with Jesus, that they're willing to go out boldly and talk about it, share it, even if it's inconvenient, even if it's uncomfortable at times, then is this something that I should experience too? So just ponder that question today, because I could literally pass the microphone around this room and we could talk about what Jesus has done in our life. And what you would hear is a lot of tears and a lot of gratitude and a lot of heartfelt comments of how God has restored marriages and lives and families and done incredible things in us that we want to share this good news with others. So the question is, how do we change our world? Well, if Jesus was here today and he was kind of coaching us on this subject, I think one of the first things he would say is, number one, plug in to the power source. You got to be plugged in to the power source. This week, as I was putting this final message together, I thought, a danger with a message like this is it can come across very motivational. Almost no different than you would hear at some corporate convention when you bring in a motivational speaker and he inspires you to go live a life bigger than yourself, make a difference, help other people. And the danger is you could walk away from this message thinking that you can do this on your own. Like you can do this in your own strength, in your own ability. And if Jesus was here today, he would tell you, don't do this without me. You need power. You need strength. If you really want to leave a lasting mark and leave a lasting legacy, you need me to do it. And so he says in John chapter 15, remain in me, as I also remain in you. Stay plugged in. Stay plugged into the power source. No branch, we're the branches. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit, change the world, make a difference unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will change the world. You'll make a difference. You'll bear much fruit, but apart from me, you can do not some things, you can do nothing. No thing can you do apart from me. He literally is saying, I am the source. I give you the ability. Remain in me, walk in me, stay plugged into the power source, and you'll change the world. Talking about changing the world, how many of you realize the iPhone has changed the world? The iPhone has changed almost every area of our life. Some of us remember what it was like. Some of us are old enough here today who remember what it was like driving without an iPhone. Do you remember what it was like when you didn't have an iPhone to give you directions? Like I told a kid the other day, I'm smarter than you because I'm older than Google, and they just look in shock at you. Like there was a day and age where we did not have an iPhone in our car to tell us where to go. You know, when I first moved to Los Angeles years ago, we had this thing called the Thomas Guide. How many of you remember the Thomas Guide? I remember my first Thomas Guide. It wasn't an iPhone, it was a Thomas Guide. And if you wanted to go anywhere in the city of Los Angeles, you had to have a Thomas Guide in your car, and it was this massive book, and you would have to flip through pages while you're driving through the city, trying to figure out wherever you're trying to get to. Like they would give you an address and you'd have to go to the back of the book and you'd have to look up the street name and then find the page number. And oftentimes it would take 2 or 3 different pages you'd have to flip through to try to figure out wherever you were going in this crazy city called Los Angeles. I mean, Los Angeles alone had an 85-page Thomas Guide to get through the city of all maps like that. That's what it was like without an iPhone. You know, remember parents used to talk about how hard it was. They had to walk 2 miles in the snow up way. We had to live without an iPhone when I grew up. I don't know anything harder in life than trying to navigate without an iPhone. How many of you ever been driving in your car and you had your iPhone, you didn't have a charger, you didn't have a cord, and all of a sudden you're trying to get somewhere you've never been before and the phone dies? And now you don't have the ability to text anyone, you can't call anyone, you can't figure out what to do, so you just give up and go home because it's like it just doesn't work anymore. Here's the thing about the iPhone. The iPhone only changes the world when it stays connected to its power source. Anytime it gets away from its power source for too long, this incredible device becomes a very expensive paperweight. How many of you have ever plugged in at night and you only got the cord halfway in and you woke up with terror the next morning when you have a full day of work and it says 13%? Because you didn't plug it all the way into the power source? So Jesus said, don't be halfway in, go all the way in. So that you have the power to do what God has called you to do. Stay plugged into the power. If you're going to change the world, you need to stay plugged into the power source. And I don't have time to talk about all the benefits. I put a few of them in your notes. Just look at these scriptures with me. Time with God gives us confidence, guidance, protection, power, wisdom, strength, equips us for our calling. That's just 8. There are so many more benefits to staying connected to the power source. First thing I think Jesus would say is stay plugged in. Don't try to change the world without my strength. Don't try to change the world without my power, without my ability in you. I think he would also say, and I know he would say it because he actually said it to those closest to him, his followers. And when he said this to them, I don't think they cheered for him. I don't think they were excited about it. I don't think they're like, oh yeah, that's exactly what we want to do. I think it was a little bit challenging at first. Because he's saying, listen, if you want to change the world, if you want to live your life with no regrets, if you want to live your life and truly make a difference, number 2, you're going to have to serve and give. Serve with your talents and your abilities, and give of your possessions and your resources, because that's what he modeled. That's the life he lived by example. In Matthew chapter 20, he said, you've observed how godless rulers throw their weight around, how quickly a little power goes to their head. They want people to serve them. They're looking for title and prestige, and they want to be powerful, and they want to be over people and be able to boss people around and tell people what to do. It's not going to be that way with you, though. It's not what I'm calling you to. Whoever wants to be great must become a servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be your slave. And this is what the Son of Man has done. He came to serve, not to be served. And not only did he serve, but he gave. He gave himself away in exchange for people who were held hostage. He made people's lives better through what he gave. I want you to think about this for a moment. Think about someone who's changed your life. Think back through your life, whether it was a coach or a guidance counselor, a teacher, parent, friend, neighbor, uncle. Somebody in your life that you would say, this person made a significant difference in my life. Can you see their face? Can you think about their name for just a moment? If we describe this person, words that we would hear from you, if we pass the microphone around, is you would say things like, they helped me when I was struggling. They took me in when I had nowhere to go. They gave when I was desperate. They pointed me to God. They invited me to church. They loved me and they spent time with me. They listened to me. They heard me. They sacrificed for me. They encouraged me. That's why they're on the list. Isn't that what Jesus is saying here? You see, if you want to make a difference, it's serving. It's giving. Everyone on the list, everyone that's ever made a difference in your life, it's because they served and because they gave. And if you're going to make a difference in the life of someone else, it's because you're going to serve and it's because you're going to give. Because of my job as a pastor, it is a privilege to be a part of many funeral services and memorials. And over the years as a pastor, I've been a part of 2 funerals consistently. One funeral is difficult because it's hard to find anyone to say anything about the person. Because no one has much to say, no one has really anything good to say, and it's kind of a painful experience that you just have to kind of push through. The other type of funeral is incredible because you can't get people to stop talking. They all have something to say. You learn stuff about the person you had no idea. People they gave, people they served, people they helped. They did it in secret. They did it in private. And you never know in their lifetime all of the things they did. And at a time like this, people come out of everywhere to talk about the difference the person made. Let me ask you a question. What kind of funeral do you want? You can decide today. The choices you make today will determine what your funeral is going to be like one day, what people are going to say about you, the way you live your life. So if this is something that you long for, if this is something that you want to make a difference with your life, you want to change your world, let me give you 3 questions that'll send you on the right track. The first one is, because of how God wired me, how can I serve? Because of how God wired me, every one of you has gifts in your life that are unique to you. God put a grace on your life. We believe your design reveals your destiny. This is the entire reason we do our Discover Lunch and our Discover class, is to help people identify, why are you unique? What is the grace on your life? What do you do better than everyone else? Because God has gifted you to do it. Because in that gifting, There's clues for how you can serve and how you can make a difference. Because when you do what you were made to do, that's the greatest area of difference you'll ever make in the world. The second question is, because of where God has me, who can I serve? Every one of you has a who that is unique to you. You have people in your world, people that you see at the gym, at the grocery store, neighbors, coworkers. That's unique to you because of where you live, because of the job you have, because of the life rhythm and pattern. Have you taken a responsibility for the who in your world? And then finally, because of what God's given me, how much could I give? You see, all of us have a different giving capacity based on what God's given us, but we all have the ability to give. And I'm not talking about serving with your talents, I'm talking about actual giving. Let me encourage you, take these 3 questions to God this week. Give God an honest shot at speaking to you in these 3 areas and see what God says. Because what I know about God is if you go to Him honestly with these questions, He's going to speak. And it's going to change the way you live. It's going to change the way you're remembered. And here's what I want to say about it. When one person begins this journey, it's powerful. But when a group of people begin the journey, it changes the world. Think about this concept of serving and giving. And then think about it like this. We can do so much more together than any one of us can do on our own. I love the way John Maxwell says it. He says, one is too small a number to achieve greatness. You'll never do all that you could do without others. We need a team. And when we pull together our resources and our energy and our giving and our serving, we got an ability to change the world. Let me just show you a few things that as this team called Coastline Church, we've had the ability to do. The difference that we have been able to make together. I think about our Giving Hope last year, which was completely different than years past, where we were able to serve 62 children in 18 families and sent teams of our church, go-team members in our church who took these families shopping and loved on them and cared for these families during Christmas, many of them foster families. And so many of these people on our Go team wouldn't even let the church cover the cost. They said, no, God's blessed us. We want to pay ourselves. We want to help these families ourselves. And together, we made a difference. Let me read to you one of the comments we got from one of the mothers in the family. She said, I just don't think many people realize how helpful these generous gifts are. Foster care, if done right, is not profitable. People's perception is so interesting. It's very sacrificial, including financially. You are a blessing to our family. Think about the difference that we get to make together. I think about our foster care team that gets together every single month, and they put together care packages for new foster families and existing foster families to just help them know that they're loved and they're cared for. There's going to be a photo that comes up. Foster care, guys. There it is. Where they care for these families and serve these families and make a difference in their life. And it's just a team of people from our church that come together to serve, to give, to make a difference and to change their world. I think about the giving of our church. Over the last couple years, we have built 7 churches in India with clean water wells. Throughout the country of India, 7 buildings and water wells that we've been able to build in remote areas and villages. And not just in India, we've also built 6 of them in Peru over the last couple years. You see right here the children sitting on the water well in the church building that your generosity together as a church family was able to accomplish. I think about our Project Girl mobile medical clinic that we built that is stationed right now at the border of Nepal in India, working with teenage girls that are sex trafficked from Nepal into India. It's our chance to provide medical care for them and rescue as many as we possibly can. I think about our Dream Center Baja Mexico team that every single month goes down to Mexico. And because of the generosity of not one person, but a team of people together, a team of people called Coastline Church. We're able to buy a home in Mexico for children, and we have over 20 children now living in this home that we're caring for, loving, supporting. Going into one of the worst squatter camps in the Tijuana area, and we're doing job training, giving job skills and training and school supplies and educational support and transforming a community, not one person, but a team of people who said we can serve and we can give and we can make a difference together. And this is just a snapshot of just some of the things that we get to accomplish together as a church family. And so let me just say, if this is your church, thank you. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your service. Because of you, we get to make a difference all around the world. And let me also say, if this is your church and you're not involved yet, I would ask you to ask God, God, what would you have me do? Where would you have me serve? Where would you have me give? How would you have me make a difference? Finally, the third thing I would say as we end this series is go share with boldness. Let's be bold about what God's given us. Let's share with boldness. We have the good news. We've got the answer. We've got the medicine that the world needs. Let's share what Jesus has done in our life with boldness. One of my favorite stories in Acts chapter 4 is about Peter and John. In Acts chapter 3, they're arrested because a guy gets supernaturally healed. A guy that was crippled for his entire life is healed. It's something amazing and good that God does. And they start telling everybody about Jesus, and people start surrendering their life to Jesus because of this good thing that happened in the life of this crippled beggar. And the religious leaders of Jerusalem are threatened and intimidated. And so they have Peter and John arrested, they have them beaten, and then they threaten him. If you ever talk about this Jesus again, we'll kill you. And so in Acts chapter 4, they get out of prison and they go into this prayer meeting. I want you to think about this for a moment. You're serving Jesus. You're telling people the good things that Jesus is doing. Somebody gets healed. People get saved. And now you're beaten up, you're thrown in jail, and you're threatened. Not just threatened, you're threatened by people that actually have the legal power to do it. They have the legal authority to kill you for talking about this Jesus if they want to. What's your prayer going to be? Let's be honest. 2024, North County, Christianity, what are you praying for in this prayer meeting? Oh, God, keep us safe. God, help us. God, keep us safe. Right? Look at the prayer. Acts chapter 4, verse 29. Now, Lord, consider their threats. And their threats are real. They had the ability to follow through. Consider their threats and enable your servants to speak your word with great boldness. We're not backing down. We're not praying for safety. We're not praying for comfort. God, give us boldness. We're not going to stop. We're going to go out there. Give us the boldness to stand for you. We need some fire back in Christianity. We need some boldness. We need some Christians who begin to see themselves as lions again. You see, it started with just a couple hundred people. Now there's 2.4 billion Christians in the world today because they had a little boldness and they had a little fire. Verse 31, if you read on in the Bible, it says they spoke the word of God boldly. Honestly, I think we've given people the wrong impression about Christianity. And I'm at fault too. I think we've unintentionally led people to believe that the goal of Christianity is comfort. Like God's going to take care of all your needs. God's going to answer all your prayers. You're never going to have worries. You're never going to have problems. You're never going to have trials. God's going to give you everything you need. And He's this incredible genie in the box, this cosmic Santa Claus. He's always going to be there for whatever you need. And I think we've given people the wrong idea about what Christianity is. We haven't helped them see that, no, it's going to be uncomfortable at times. It's going to be inconvenient. It's not always going to be safe. A couple weeks ago, my son and I went to India. Before we went to India, I had different people in the church praying for us. When they asked me, what do you want us to pray for? Here was my prayer request. God, use us greatly and impact us deeply. That was the prayer. Use us greatly and impact us deeply. I remember the night we left. We got on the flight. We're flying away from San Diego Airport. I'm sitting next to my son. And I let him know, hey, people are praying for us. They got our back. He said, good. Are they praying that we'll be safe? I said, no. If I wanted to be safe, we wouldn't be going to India. Why would I ask God to keep me safe? No, I want God to make me dangerous. I want God to make me bold. I want God to use me greatly. I'm not looking for safety. When I was the youth pastor in Los Angeles years ago, I had this young 14-year-old come to me. He said, Pastor, he was so scared. Pastor, please pray for me. Please pray for me. I said, why? What's going on? He was like terrified. He goes, I'm going to Belmont High School next year. It was the most dangerous gang high school in the inner city of Los Angeles. Stabbings. I mean, it was a crazy high school. I'm going to Belmont High School. Please pray that God will keep me safe. I said, I can't do that. He looked at me in shock. He said, well, what do you mean you can't do that? I said, God's not interested in your safety. I said, but what I will pray is that God will make you dangerous. That God will make you more dangerous than anything in that school. That he that is in you is greater than he that is in the world. That the power, that authority that is inside of you is greater than any power and authority in that school. And that you will walk in there bold as a lion and make a difference. You're not going to cower to the fear of what's going on there. But you're going to walk in there as a world changer. And you're going to be the dangerous one. See, it's time we get back to this. We're threatened. We're thrown in prison. We're being attacked. It's uncomfortable. God, make me bold. Give me fire again. When we first started the Dream Center in Los Angeles, I was probably about 20 at the time. We didn't do prayer meetings in the church where it was comfortable and safe and we could turn the air conditioning on just right and have the music and the lights just perfect. That's how we do prayer meetings here. I'm not against it. We do prayer meetings like that here every Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. Join us. But in Los Angeles, we did prayer meetings on Friday night at 10 o'clock. We called them prayer walks. And we began to walk the streets around the Dream Center. And if you know anything about the Dream Center, it wasn't in a good area of town. It was in the worst area of town in Los Angeles. And so when we first started the Dream Center, Friday nights, 10 o'clock, we would do prayer walks on the street. We thought if that's when all the gang activity and the craziness and the drive-bys and the drugs and the parties and the darkness, then we're going to be light in the middle of the darkness. And we would walk the streets and pray over the streets Friday night at 10 o'clock. And I remember back in the early day, I was 20 years old. Honestly, we were pretty naive. We weren't very smart. I'm just saying. And one night it was getting late. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and everybody wanted to start heading back to the church because they were done praying. And, I'm young and stupid and brash, and I'm just like, I'm going to stay out by myself. I'm going to win the entire city of Los Angeles to Christ by myself if I have to. So I stayed out on my own, and I'm just walking down the street by myself, middle of the night, and under the street light, I saw one of the biggest gang members I had ever seen in my life. I mean, he was huge. He had the shaved head. He had tattoos all over his face. He had the wife beater tank top on. And, being a bit naive, I decided to walk up to this guy in the middle of the night. Howdy, how you doing? I caught him off guard. He took one look at me. He said, get out of here before I kill you. And not being the smartest person, hadn't been in Los Angeles that long, I decided to tell him, you can't kill me. And then when he pulled out his knife, I knew I was wrong. I knew he could very easily, if he wanted to. Probably done it before. And I realized I better think quick. If I don't have something to say, I'm a goner. So I remember the Apostle Paul. And I looked at him and said, you can't kill me because I'm already dead. I died to Christ a long time ago. So the life you see now, it's not I, but it's Christ living in me. What do you think about that? Realized he'd never read that book before. He had no idea what I was talking about. It wasn't working. So I thought, I better say something fast because I'm running out of time. And I remember the Holy Spirit that night put a word on my heart. And I looked at him in the eye and I said, you can't kill me because nobody has ever loved you as much as I love you. He said, you don't love me. What do you mean you love me? You don't know what my life is like. You don't know what it's like out here on the street. How can you say you love me? I said, listen to me. How many people do you know who believe your threat is real? Who believe you could very easily do what you say you're going to do, but are still out here to show you there's another way to live? I said, yeah, the truth is you may take my life tonight, but your life means more to me than my life does. And if I have to die to love you, I'll die to love you. And I watched him break down and begin to cry right there on the street. He said, they killed my brother 2 weeks ago. I got a 6-year-old son. I don't want him growing up like this. And I was able to pray with him and watch the power of God begin to transform him that night, not because it was safe, not because it was easy, not because it was comfortable. We got to stay plugged into the power source. We can't do it without Jesus. We need his power in our life. We got to begin to serve, and we got to begin to give, and then we got to begin to go with boldness and share the good news of what Jesus has done in our life.